From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Unlocking the secrets of corn.
Now we're able to sequence pieces 20, 30, 40,000 base pairs long.
How a deep look into corn's DNA could mean bigger yields for farmers. As farmer sentiment slumps.
Farmer sentiment weakened in September as the Ag Economy Barometer Index fell 9 points.
Things got off to a great start in Nebraska.
Much better than we thought we were going to have when we were looking at the dry weather in June.
But how are farmers there finishing when it comes to harvest? We head into the fields right now on AgDay.
AgDay, presented by Pioneer. What's next happens when experience meets expertise. Pioneer. What's next happens here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Hot, dry weather's continuing to push harvest forward at a faster pace. USDA reported corn and soybean harvests are running ahead of average. Right now, 23% of the nation's corn crop has been harvested. That's 2% ahead of average. As for soybeans, 23% is out of the ground, 1% ahead of the 5-year average.
We have a couple of states that saw a 20 percentage point change in maturity from the previous week. And that's where the hot, dry weather built in late in the week. In the Dakotas, we saw a big jump in maturity in North Dakota from 51 to 73% during the week ending October 1st. And in South Dakota, a big jump from 60 to 80%.
But in some places, that heat and dryness are hitting the soybean crop hard, especially in Kansas, where 50% of the crop now rated very poor to poor.
The I-80 Harvest Tour on AgDay is brought to you by Case IH. The Farm All has been the iconic partner on the farm for generations. Come celebrate a century of Farm All, the one for all, at farmall100.com. And by AGI. At AGI, we spend a lot of time focused on our product details, making sure you can store your grain how you need to and move it when you need to. Learn more at aggrowth.com.
Harvest is also running ahead of pace in Nebraska, where 22% of the corn crop has been harvested, along with 29% of the soybeans. And as AgDay's Michelle Rook reports on our I-80 Harvest Tour, the 2023 growing season in the Cornhusker State has been a story of haves and have-nots.
Early harvest results here in Nebraska have been variable, as you might expect. While some farmers faced their second year of drought, others were lucky enough to pick up some mid-season rains, and that was just enough to overcome some of the early season drought stress to produce some average to above average yields. Steve Wellman was hit by drought on his farm in southeast Nebraska in 2022. So surprisingly, this season started off with enough moisture to get the crop off to a good start.
And then June turned really dry, and we were really concerned about the drought.
In fact, in June, drought covered 95% of the state. However, some mid-season moisture may have come just in time to save Wellman's corn crop.
This corn that we're harvesting today, 109-day maturity, it was starting to try to tassel the last week of June, but fortunately it started raining about that time, and we received about 13 inches of rain in July.
And their harvest results are proving that early drought damage can be overcome by timely rains.
And we see the impact of great yields here now, much better than we thought we were going to have when we were looking at the dry weather in June.
In fact, corn yields have been averaging around 200 bushels per acre, nearly 25% above his farm's average production history. He attributes some of it to improved genetics and management.
Yield-wise, it looks like we're going to be above normal, yield-wise, above our 10-year APH for crop insurance, and so happy about that, at least on corn.
Corn is running 57 to 58 pounds, so the late season heat didn't hurt test weights, and they aren't seeing field loss.
And right now, the corn's standing well, the ears are hanging on well, so really no issues right now.
However, Wellman thinks the late season heat may have hurt soybean production potential and standability. There's also been some disease and pest pressure.
I think we lost the top end of the crop during August and September during the heat. It looked like it probably took a few steps backward yield-wise, but overall, still optimistic that it'll be above our 10-year APH yield.
However, that's not the case across Nebraska, and statewide yields may be below average, with drought impacting nearly half the state, accounting for 71% of corn and 80% of soybean acres. The unknown is how much irrigated production will make up for the drought losses.
Nebraska is pretty diverse across irrigated and non-irrigated. This corn is not irrigated, but I know some areas have really been short on moisture, so be variable, just like it usually is in the state of Nebraska.
In Nebraska on the I-80 Harvest Tour, I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
A line of showers is stretching all the way from Texas and up into the Great Lakes today. Meteorologist Matt Engelbrecht joins us with an update.
You're actually going to see a transition between a ridge of high pressure, trough of low pressure across the United States, and that's going to pick up that line that you were just talking about on Wednesday into Thursday right along a cold front. Now the trough is going to dig north to south and pick up some Gulf moisture. As it does, the potential is there for some heavier downpours, isolated severe weather in and across Texas, Oklahoma, as we bring in some of the Gulf moisture. Remember a few days ago we were talking about source regions for moisture. Well, this is a major one now for this kind of system. This is Thursday at 2 o'clock in the morning. The cloud cover, the rain extend back up into Canada, all the way back down here to the south and to the southwest. Now with the upper level support that you're seeing with these white lines, we're going to carry the chance of rain and snow into portions of the United States Friday morning and into Friday afternoon. So again, there's Friday at about 9 a.m. You see some of that moisture swing in and across the United States. Harvest work continues for BJ McNeil in South Dakota. He calls his soybean harvest so far unbelievable, saying the farm average on the organics was just over 52 bushels an acre over their normal yield. He says that he was just cutting his first GMO field of the season, and he says it will beat their all-time record. We'll talk more about your forecast coming up.
Slumping crop prices and high production costs continue to erode farmer sentiment. That's the headline from the latest Ag Economy Barometer produced by Purdue University and the CME Group. Now, the September barometer fell 9 points to 106. Farmers surveyed say beyond softening prices and higher input costs, interest rates are a growing concern. Now, the index of both current conditions and future expectations was lower in September as well. All three indices now below a year ago as farmers continue to question whether now is a good time to spend money on big projects.
The Farm Capital Investment Index was up 2 points compared to a month earlier, and that left the index 8 points higher than it was a year ago. However, nearly 3/4 of the producers in this month's survey said they still think it's a bad time to make large investments in their farming operation. And we asked them why. 40% of them said it was because of the impact of rising interest rates on their farming operation.
Mintert says farmers remain cautiously optimistic about farmland values going forward. The saga over a Saudi-owned hay farm in Arizona continues as the state steps in. As we've reported, the company Fondamonte, Arizona, has used groundwater to irrigate its alfalfa hay fields in Butler Valley since 2015. Now, the hay is then shipped back to Saudi Arabia to feed the kingdom's cow herd there. Given recent droughts and water availability concerns, many residents consider it a foreign extraction of natural resources. Well, now Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs says the state land department has terminated one lease and decided not to renew 3 others that expire in February. The move will effectively prevent Fondamonte, Arizona from pumping groundwater, and the company says the move is a breach of its lease terms and warns it sets a precedent for all farmers and state land leases. New export sales are reported by USDA, but it has very little impact on markets on Tuesday. We'll discuss that coming up next in Analysis. And later, we head to Nebraska, where university researchers are sequencing the corn genome, what it means for genetic innovation today in the country. China buying more U.S. ag products on Tuesday, purchasing 9.7 million bushels of soybeans and more than 8 million bushels of soft red winter wheat. But it wasn't enough to push soybeans forward. Michelle Rook is back with more in Markets Now.
Well, a mostly lower day in markets on Tuesday, with the exception of wheat. Chip Nellinger, Blue Reef Agri-Marketing, joining us. And Chip, it felt like a risk-off day for sure.
It was very much risk-off. You know, this dollar index has really been strong here recently. You know, just screaming through 104, 105, 106, marking our way up towards 107. And that really has all been from about 2 weeks ago when the Federal Reserve said we're going to keep these interest rates higher for longer than what the market expected. Interest rates have shot through the roof. Treasury bonds and note futures really imploded. That's kept the dollar strong. Now the equity markets are starting to roll over, and that really has kind of created a risk off for all commodities, especially our grain and livestock markets. Now the funds were short corn and wheat already in large amounts. They were long beans, and so I think what that means is you're seeing heavier selling in the beans, less so in the corn and the wheat, and it's kind of creating this environment that looks like corn and wheat are trying to bottom, and it looks like beans might have another dollar to go to the downside.
And is that harvest pressure, concerns about the river, or what? Or technical selling, like you mentioned, though?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Mississippi River issue is a big part of this, right at the worst time of the fall, pretty much the gut slot of bean harvest. Eastern Corn Belt yields are pretty good as well. And so you combine this, poor river basis, not really poor river basis, it's just simply the fact that we can't get them all down the Mississippi River. And you add that to the risk off and the fact that the funds are long and needing to run for the exits. And it's really been an ugly couple of weeks in the bean market here.
Yeah. In addition, we also got some China SRW wheat business that helped to kind of lift the corn and wheat market, it looked like, on Tuesday.
Yeah, kind of came out of the blue, right? They're supposed to be on holiday. We had an announcement on Monday. Of course, that could have been on Friday before their holiday. And now today it comes out, they're buying beans and wheat. Certainly something that you really want to look towards and say, all right, maybe the wheat market has gone low enough for the time being. If China's coming in to buy it, maybe that could mark a significant low in here.
What about corn? Is the harvest low in there too?
I've thought for a couple of weeks it has been. Unfortunately, if beans do have 60, 80 cents, $1 lower to go, that's going to keep a little bit of pressure on corn. But to me, the corn market acts like we've seen the low. The calendar tells you that we've seen the low already. Now we just need the market action to confirm it. We need wheat to stop going lower, and I think that can be the case.
Thanks for joining us, Chip Nellinger, Blue Reef Agri-Marketing. That's Markets Now. We'll have more AgDay coming up.
Farming has changed. Markets are riskier than ever. For customized, focused commodity marketing, contact Chip Nellinger or Adam Dreyer at 309-550-7213. AgDay is brought to you by the Advanced Acre RX program from Winfield United. To hear directly from farmers how Advanced Acre RX helps you get the most out of your season, visit winfieldunited.com/AARX.
As we talked about a little bit ago, with the upper level support, the source region of moisture being the Gulf of Mexico, you combine the two, and some isolated severe weather may crop up through Texas and Oklahoma coming up for our Wednesday. Really, it's going to be kind of in this heavy rain, if not large hail. When we talk severe weather, that's going to be this, and this. But we may get some heavy rain as well as some large hail with the kind of temperature profile that we're seeing in the atmosphere. By Thursday, the severe weather threat kind of washes itself out, but that system will continue to move from the west to the east, bringing with it some cooler than average temperatures through a large portion of the United States going into the weekend. And speaking of which, you can see that show up now on the jet stream very clearly. Wednesday and into Thursday, you got the green and the yellow. That is where that cool, dry air, not cold air, is starting to sink from the north to the south. As we clear the skies out, you'll hear a lot more about the potential for a frost or freeze starting as early as Friday morning, but especially this weekend into portions of the Midwest, into Minnesota, as well as Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, as we get into our Saturday and Sunday. A lot of that depending on what's going on with the cloud cover. This is going to continue to be supported by the jet stream, so it's going to take a little time for it to work out. I'm talking about the cooler than average air. As we get into Sunday and Monday, this starts to actually strengthen. You see you got more than one circle evolving. This starts to strengthen off the northeast coast. What that's going to do is push this ridge, the amplitude, the height of the ridge, even farther to the north. So increase in warming across the United States for nearly half of the United States. And then you got a pocket of cool, dry air, as well as windy conditions streaming in towards the end of the weekend for locations that are going to be under that blue and up into the northeast. Let's talk about Alpena. Unless you're from there, that's Alpena, Michigan. Mostly cloudy, high around 81 degrees, low of 60. South Carolina, high around 80, low of 59 degrees. And max, to the max, North Dakota, mostly cloudy, high 62.
In June, we celebrated Pork Week, but now it's Porktober. We have details next. And later, scientists finally complete their map of the corn genome. What that can mean for future innovation today in the country. October marks the celebration of Pork Month, or Porktober, and PorkBusiness.com has new numbers that show how big of an impact the industry has across the country. Today, the U.S. is home to approximately 66,000 hog farms. You can see the state-by-state breakdown here. On average, 140 million hogs are marketed annually. Now, last year, they had an average price of just over $71 live weight. In addition, the U.S. pork industry supports more than 600,000 jobs and has injected about $57 billion into the nation's value-added gross domestic product. For more on the impact the pork industry is having, check out PorkBusiness.com. Well, a new study suggests California's Proposition 12 is already being felt by California consumers. One PhD student from Texas A&M University has been digging into the numbers during her internship at USDA. Now, she says, for example, in California, pork loin prices were up 43% in August compared to prices in June. And she says the volume of pork purchased was down 23% from June to August in the state. Now, Prop 12 went into effect on July 1st. It sets production standards for pork sold into the state. Now, in late June, a California judge extended the time for non-compliant pork that was already in the supply chain before July 1st to continue to be sold into the state through the end of the year. Well, the understanding of plant genetics continues to grow. Up next, how a complete picture of the corn genome is spurring innovation for the future today in the country. Just like human DNA, the corn genome is extremely complex. But as Farm Journal's Tyne Morgan reports, university researchers have unlocked the code, and it could change the game for plant breeding and for farmers.
These fields are unlocking the future.
If you ask any farmer, I think they will tell you the three things they care about are yield, yield, and yield, and that is not going to change. That's going to be the primary focus.
But to boost yields, James Schnabel, professor of agronomy at the University of Nebraska, first had to finish a job that started back in 2007.
They got a draft of the easy parts of the corn genome that was published in 2009. But that left a lot of complex, repetitive parts of the genome that just are hard to put together.
That was at Iowa State. He says mapping the corn genome is like putting together the sky in a puzzle. The pieces all look the same, and you have to figure out which ones are missing and where they all go.
The most difficult part was a lot of those holes are just the same piece, same DNA sequence repeated over and over and over again. And so that's why I like this analogy to putting together a puzzle. If you just have the same colored puzzle piece over and over and over again, all you can do is try one after another which pieces fit into the other. And that's really what we had to do to fill in some of those biggest holes.
Schnabel collaborated with folks at Iowa State. It was led, though, by a team at the China Agricultural University. With the latest technology, it allowed the researchers to sequence much longer pieces of DNA, and with that, they discovered the missing pieces, mapping the entire corn genome.
When the first version of the corn genome was sequenced, individual DNA sequences that we could read were only maybe 1,000, 2,000 letters long. Now we're able to sequence pieces 20, 30, 40,000 base pairs long, which is why we were able to successfully fill in all those last missing holes.
With the latest DNA sequencing technologies, along with genetic and physical maps, the team then got to work sequencing the corn genome with the goal of answering lingering questions about corn.
We still do not have good technologies for figuring out which corn hybrids are going to perform in which environments without actually testing them. We need to be doing a better job of this because the Nebraska of 2040, the Nebraska of 2030 is very different from the Nebraska of 2023, and we need to be developing corn hybrids today that are going to thrive in farmers' fields in the Nebraska of 2030.
Schnabel says knowing the entire sequence of the corn genome allows researchers to make better decisions early on which hybrids have the most potential.
The difference is we can make better decisions early on about which varieties have promise, which ones should be moving through that pipeline, based not on how the plants are performing in the field today, but how we think the plants will perform in the fields of 2030, when there's going to be less nitrogen, less water, and different growing seasons than the ones that we are working with today.
The team then trials that breeding here, as well as across Nebraska and Iowa. It allows them to discover which genes control performance in a wide variety of soils and environments. And the final version of mapping the entire human genome happened only a few months before Schnabel and team mapped the corn genome.
We're catching up to the cutting edge in corn,
Me
and
too.
I like it.
All right, thanks, Ty, and that's all the time we have this morning. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in farm country.